doesn't care about you. That's why you need a medical emergency kit. It contains life-saving medications like ivermectin, Z-Pak, and antibiotics. Stock them before they block them.
New York City may well be led by a communist soon, Zorhan Mandami, who in his nomination speech said he will defy ICE and will not allow ICE to arrest criminal aliens in New York City. Your message to communist Zorhan Mandami?
Well, then we'll have to arrest him. Look, we don't need a communist in this country, but if we have one, I'm going to be watching over him very carefully on behalf of the nation. We send him money. We send him all the things that he needs to run a government. And by the way, they get about 3 times what you get, Ron.
Дороги! Вышел, сука, вышел! Руки за спину! 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 Вот такое не разговаривай! Сука твоя, да? Отошел с телефона! Хорош! Да все, я там довелся, ничего! Ребят, я родился! Я вырос в Екатеринбурге! Что случилось, что? Да что случилось? Ребята, да все! Да я лег, успокойтесь! Да все! Ребят, все хорошо!
Es war immer klar, dass wir, wenn wir Taurus liefern, diese Waffe nicht von deutschen Soldaten eingesetzt wird, sondern von ukrainischen. So wie das übrigens bei anderen Marschflugkörpern, die aus Großbritannien und aus Frankreich geliefert werden, auch der Fall ist. Nun ist bei uns das Problem, dass dieses System extrem kompliziert ist und man mindestens 6 Monate braucht, um Soldaten daran auszubilden.
Ja. Werden die denn jetzt schon ausgebildet?
Das haben wir noch nicht verabredet. Ich habe darüber mit Zelensky gesprochen. Ich habe darüber auch in der Koalition gesprochen. Wir haben damit noch nicht begonnen. Es ist und bleibt eine Option. Aber ich habe auch gesagt, wir werden über die Frage, welche Waffen wir liefern, was wir tun, um die Ukraine militärisch zu unterstützen, in Zukunft nicht mehr in dieser Weise öffentlich diskutieren, weil ich möchte, dass Putin eine gewisse Unsicherheit hat über das, was wir militärisch tun. Eines nur ist sicher, und das sage ich dann auch hier in dieser Sendung noch einmal, Deutschland wird nicht Kriegspartei.
But you tell me, what do we need to do when Hamas terrorists are hiding behind human people, are hiding behind schools,
you know the first thing you could do?
Of hospitals? What do we need to do?
You know the first thing you could do? You could lift the ban that the Israeli government has put on international journalists going into Gaza so that all the claims that you make, which always blame Hamas for absolutely everything, could be verified by independent journalists. Why don't you do that? Why for 20 months have you banned international media from going into Gaza? An unprecedented ban for any modern warfare. Why have you done this?
Well, I want to tell you that, first of all, you have to understand something. The IDF army is not trained to shoot in bursts. They are trained to shoot through sights in a single shot mode. That means they are not shooting like in the movies, like you think, spraying all over.
What's that got to do with the media being banned?
I will tell you right now. So if you'll just let me finish. So you would agree with me that if the IDF would have shot in bursts, Gaza would have been a parking lot within 12 hours, and that would have been much more dangerous to the. No, it's not.
You've destroyed 70% of Gaza already, and you're carrying on destroying the rest.
For the Gazans
Gaza is a parking lot. With all due respect, Minister, you have reduced two-thirds of Gaza to a parking lot. Why are you pretending otherwise?
Mr. Morgan. No, I'm not pretending. I don't need to pretend.
Funny?
I'm saying the reality like it is. No,
you think that's funny?
Of course, it's funny. It's funny when you think that I'm pretending. I'm sitting here in front of you. I don't have to, right? I can live my life and don't conduct with you. But I am sitting here because I know I'm telling the truth. I have no reason.
Welcome back to the SCIF. Thanks for joining us today. We got a full show. We're going to get going. Say hello to the crew in the chat. You're cleared hot. Thanks for all the engagement already getting going there. Love all the regulars. Thank you very much. And please check out whatfinger.com. Just want to mention them. If you want a good aggregator, go to whatfinger.com to get your news. After you go to cdm.press, though, 3 times a day. They do post a lot of our content, but you won't get everything. So please, we are the new global wire service without the globalist spin. We have reporters all over the world. We have all kind of stories coming in overnight, and we're going to get to those today. So please join us there. Today's, theme is conflict. Conflict all over the world continues as this fourth turning continues to turn. The old soap opera, as the world turns, well, as the fourth turning turns, we're going to inform you as to what is going on. I had a great conversation. I caught him early this morning. He's in Japan. Michael Yon, sat down with him, talked about Panama, talked about the farmland in the U.S., the drug issues, the drugs flooding into the U.S., and the Idaho ambush. Really good insights from Michael, as always. We don't agree with everything he says, but we agree with a lot of it, and we let people talk here. So you're going to get alternative opinions from Mr. Yon, that is for sure, that may, I don't want to say offend some people, but you may get things that you're not getting elsewhere, and it may surprise you. Let's put it that way. You saw in the cold open, the Russian-Azeri conflict is ongoing. That was an arrest of Russians in Azerbaijan. There's a big conflict there, and it's bigger than just those two nations. Of course, it's a frozen conflict of the Soviet Union. The Nagorno-Karabakh region with Armenia kicked off a couple years ago. And this is a continuing conflict between the Russian Federation and Azerbaijan, a Muslim country that is actually helping Ukraine, and the Russians don't like it. So there's a lot more going on than just that. You saw President Trump talking about the communists in New York City. He won the primary yesterday. Where is that going to go? It's going to be fun to watch. Get the popcorn, as they say. And you saw Merz in Germany, who is talking around sending Taurus missiles to Ukraine, which are the long-range cruise missiles, into Ukraine. That has been coming out of both sides of Merz's mouth. Of course, he was the one caught on the train coming back with Zelensky, allegedly smoking crack or whatever it was, with a couple of the guys on the train. So again, all interesting and fun to watch, but we're going to inform you as to what's happening. Then we've got Pete Blaber in the second hour, Ukraine SitRep. So you can see we are very, very full today, and we're going to continue to bring you what you're probably not going to get elsewhere. I want to just ask you to go to and find this on CDM or top right corner, subscribe with no ads. You get access to all of our sites with no advertising. People love it. You don't get any pop-ups on your phone that you have to click away from. It's just all ad-free at cdm.press. And so join us and support free media, and tell your friends about it, and just scroll all over the sites and get the news from around the world with no ads. People love it. So that's a way you can support us. It gives us revenue that we can count on every week or every month coming in, and continue to hire more reporters and bring in more writers and do on the site reporting. By the way, it looks like we're probably going to be doing some on-site reporting in Armenia with the Azeri, Armenian, Russian, Turkish issue. Really important part of the world, and continuing in our theme of highlighting Christian persecution, which that is spot one of Christian persecution with the Armenian genocide. A lot to unpack there, and we're going to unpack it. And we're going to have more guests later in the week on that issue, Christian persecution, which has become bigger and important than bigger issue for us and very important for us going forward. Wow. With that, I'm going to take a break. When we get back, we're going to have Michael Yon. So stay with us. Thank you.
This is a special report.
Knowing how to invest your money is harder than ever before. Dealing with stock market volatility, record debt, and terrorist attacks requires new thinking. At U.S. Asset Management, we can help you see the world more clearly so that you can move beyond the chaos and invest with confidence. Call us, visit us online, or drop by our office. U.S. Asset Management, helping you make better decisions with your money.
Pandemic, we can never be caught unprepared again. And so many Americans, when COVID hit, they had nothing in the house. Stores were shut down and doctors' offices were shut down. And even if doctors prescribed drugs, hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, pharmacists wouldn't fill the prescriptions. That was a nightmare.
Now the situation is much worse. We have these horrible supply chain problems. In our emergency medical kit at the Wellness Company, we have 8 prescription drugs that are all potentially life-saving.
Most people who died with COVID, they died in the hospital because they didn't receive early treatment.
Every American family should have one of these.
I can tell you the Wellness Company kit is the answer.
So we are in the factory in Kentucky. This is Alp World HQ, and we are at the end of the packing line. So I'm going to show you how it works. We have the card, throw it in there. There's a packing slip, and then you have the Alp. And 4, but that seems honestly like a lot. 3 now, but it's good. These pack a punch that, for a normal nicotine brand, it'd be like 8. We think 3 is fine. Next one. Again, 4. Let's throw 3 in just to keep it fair. Okay? There you go. So you can see you can get fast at this. And really, it's just a matter of repetition. This is kind of the assembly line that, Henry Ford devised so long ago.
Tucker, stealing all the applicants.
As I mentioned, I sat down with Michael Yon this morning. He's in Japan, so he's hard to get a hold of. And by the way, we may be doing some joint reporting with Michael in the Caucasus, so I'll let you know about that on site, actually. We will let you know. But I enjoyed speaking with Michael. I always do. I always learn something. As I said, I don't agree with everything he says, but I always get an enlightened, insightful, alternative opinion. So I'm going to play this interview we did with Michael and this morning, and then second hour we're going to have Pete Blaber, but we'll get to the rest. We'll get to the mission brief here after this interview. So here we go. All right, we're back with Michael Yon. I saw some of the stuff he was putting out, and I had to get him on. And primarily, I wanted to talk about Idaho, but so much has happened since that happened. But let's start there. You said you smell some ambush tactics there. I smell some MK Ultra kind of thing. What do you think's going on there?
I don't know, because you know how first reports are, and but bait and ambush is a normal tactic that's been used since, I don't know, the beginning of war. I mean, right. Animals use bait and ambush every day, and it's like the stuff that you learn in, like, when you're an 18-year-old soldier. So I mean, there's nothing new about that, if that's what it was. In other words, a baited ambush, of course, is when you do something like, cause a fire or put something somewhere where somebody goes to it and then you attack them. And it's just normal. Actually, about a year ago with the hurricane in Texas, you may recall that the linemen that were coming in from around the United States to work around Houston because of the power outages, they were getting attacked and threatened. And that sounded very much like unconventional warfare. That's unconventional warfare 101, is when you actually do something like that and you attack the first responders. And this has been used in warfare since I don't know when. Of course, we haven't had electricity for 500 years, but but the idea of baited ambush has been around for a long time.
Well, I was looking at the guy. To me, and I just, as you kind of look for pattern recognition, it's a young kid. We've had all these school shootings. The pattern is very similar to me. It's a young kid. It looks just like the Crooks guy that shot Trump. To me, that's the first thing I thought of. And then he's killed right after. So there's no interrogation. I mean, with Crooks, they just destroyed the body completely. But I just feel like a weird sense. Why would some young kid just up and do this?
And they're doing it right out in front of everybody. Like,
yeah,
there's so many of these things are just done, just naked, like obvious, no hiding, like the Crooks thing over at the Trump day with what looks to be a fake bullet trace. With the sniper bullet, these things are just amazingly obvious, and it goes on and on. Like October 7th in Israel, that was amazingly obvious green flag attack where the Israelis allowed it to happen to their own people. I mean, that's just, I don't know. I don't know another way to interpret that, actually. And so these things are a normal part of war, and it's one of their normal tactics.
So what about, you mentioned drugs with Tucker. What are you seeing on that space?
Well, drugs are one of the primary weapons used in war. And I wrote about this in Afghanistan in a number of dispatches called the perfect evil. The perfect evil. And I called it the perfect evil because as you look more and more into this, you realize drugs, or let's say intoxicants, it could be alcohol, whatever, and actually pharma these days in the United States, even if it's not an intoxicant, where people just have to have that drug for whatever reason. But the drug itself often kills them and it drains out their resources while it's doing it. So let's say you're an enemy that wants to destroy the United States or some other country. You flood them with drugs and then you make money. You make a fortune. You take their wealth, actually, while you're destroying their physical bodies and their countries, right? And so it's a perfect evil. It's like you're actually getting rich while you destroy your enemy, as opposed to spending billions of dollars on airstrikes. You're making billions of dollars and you're doing it silently and blaming it on somebody else. And that's clearly a big, part of the things that are going on now. For instance, in Thailand, last time I went to Thailand, suddenly there was thousands of licenses out for cannabis. Now, I started doing a little, I'm quite well known in Thailand. I'm in some ways more known in Thailand than I am in the United States because I was there for 2 coups and I did it. So in other words, I can publish things and it makes the rounds is what I'm getting to, right? And there's one thing, in the military and other places, taking credit for things is not a virtue, right? It's like a sin. But when you're doing this kind of work, you need to take some credit because that gives you the wasta, let's say, it opens more doors. It causes people to listen. So you need to take some credit. And that's why I'm saying with the Thailand, you need some street cred. So you have to actually fill up your bank account with some of that so you can use it, right? And so, in Thailand, I have a lot of street cred. I mean, I was there and in 2 of the coups, there was about 3,000 casualties roughly with a couple hundred killed. It was really game on, right? In 2010 and 14. And I was out in the middle of it. I wasn't just in Thailand. I was in the middle of the fighting, right? And both of those times, and it was extensive. It went on for months, both times. But so that picked up millions of readers in Thailand. I can walk down the street and people know who I am. Let's put it that way. If you web search my name, I'm flying around with the prime minister in Thailand, right? In his jet, right? So what I'm getting to is, when I went to Thailand last time, I was with Doug Casey and Masako Ganaha, and Doug Casey, the famous gold expert. And so we were there. And keep in mind, I had spent a lot of time in Thailand before. I had an office there and that sort of thing. And I saw all these cannabis stores suddenly that hadn't been there before under King Rama IX, right? And I'm like, war is my business. So I know what's going on. Somebody's trying to rip Thailand apart. I know one of those trying to do it is Chinese Communist Party, and another is clearly the United States, right? And so has been the first time I noticed the United States was involved was 2010, but especially in 2014, it was just obvious, right? And so you got two parties that are doing the same thing in Thailand, by the way. I mean, sorry, in Panama. Chinese Communist Party and the United States, actually Zionists, are ripping Panama apart. But anyway, we'll go back to Thailand. But the drugs, suddenly, so I went over there and I started talking with key Thai people, and I'm like, look, this is what they're doing to Thailand. There all these cannabis, over 9,000 licenses for retail and wholesale and distribution and growing suddenly appeared, right? I think it was about 9,300 last year. And that came from flat-footed to that fast in just a few years, about 3 years. And so I started saying that to key Thais, and now all of a sudden it caused an uproar, right? And now the Thais are pushing back hard. So now the Thai government's like, no, you're going to have to, it's only for medical use only. I'm like, that's not good enough. You need to get them out. All this medical use only stuff, we've already seen how this bullshit goes. The medical use only is a ruse, and and we end up with places looking like San Francisco and Los Angeles and Skid Row and all that crap, and Portland, where the monkeys are in front of ICE right now. I just got a message from law enforcement over there. They're over there, in Portland, Oregon, where I've also spent I spent a lot of time with Antifa, right? In many places like Portland, Atlanta, Washington, Philadelphia, actually in Hong Kong. Weirdly, American Antifa in Hong Kong, but the bottom line is they were all on drugs, right? And so, like, terribly on drugs. I was out in Atlanta with Antifa. They were doing a protest in front of it's like the Capitol, and not the Capitol, but it was like some sort of, I've forgotten the name of the building, but I've got photos. It was in the news. But one of the guys I was talking with, he had an AR-15 strapped across his back, and he was a trans guy. And I was talking with him, and I said, man, you see all these cops around here. These are really serious dudes. Like, look at that guy. He's looking at, I told him, everybody here, they've already got targets picked out, and at least a couple of guys are targeting you, right? If something happens, you're going to get shot, right? If somebody lets off fireworks, if somebody accidentally cacks off a round, right? You will be shot, right? Instantly, you'll be dead in 10 seconds. And so somebody here, at least one or two guys have already been, their commander has told them, you take that dude out, right? And so that way it's not 10 guys shooting at one guy. You know how military stuff goes. And so, and these Georgia troopers, man, they were serious dudes. I'm looking at them. I'm like, these are like former Marine dudes or something. You know what I mean? They're ready to roll. And what I'm getting to, so I'm talking with this guy, he's got his rifle, and everybody's doing their protests, and a lot of guys have their rifles. And I said, why are you doing this? And he goes, I was lonely. Nobody would, he was very clear. He's speaking from his heart. He was like, nobody would accept me. I'm like an outcast, and they accepted me. And I said, I don't know what to say. I felt sorry for him. A lot of those people, once you get to know them, you're like, these guys, we look at them from a distance like they're out here like these evil beings, but I know what's really happening. People are taking these vulnerable people, and they are absolutely weaponizing them to the point where they end up being evil beings, right?
Well, that circles back to what I was talking about in the beginning. Is I think they're manipulating these young kids for these shootings as well. But I've heard that in the universities that why are students attracted to some of this Marxist garbage? And the reaction I've gotten is, well, they pay attention to me, just like you said. They talk.
Really, they've told you that too.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
well, there's a message in that, isn't there? And you know what? Grant talked about this in his memoirs in 1879. He was also talking about this. when he was doing his world tour, President Grant, the way he was not president anymore, ex-president, but he was touring around the world. He was talking with this Chinese guy, and he talked about that. This is 1879, right? And he's talking about that, and it would be very similar to the conversation we're having right now. He was talking about that with a Chinese guy. Yeah, interesting, isn't it?
Very interesting. So who is behind all these smoke shops? To me, there's some entity behind, and somebody's ignoring it because it's happening I'm talking about the US now. It's happening in every city, every small town. There's smoke shops now. So who is behind this?
Yeah. And well, some large entity. I know some of the companies are Dutch, some are Israeli. That's clear. And because it's open, like Masako Ganaha and I, we went to a cannabis expo in Buenos Aires in about November or December, so not long ago. And we realized it was actually a traveling show. After that, they were going to Sao Paulo, they were going to Brazil, and they were going to other. So it was like a circus, basically. But I mean, this is a place where a huge expo showing you mushrooms, and they say all these children, a lot of stuff for children, right? Like,
yeah.
I published it on my Substack today. So on my Substack, you can see some photos like these people dressed up like big toys, like not Mickey Mouse, but similar. And one of them has Satan and Company on the back of its hat, right?
Wow.
And it's going right up to this baby, which I got in one of several of my photos. Like this apparent mother has got their baby, and she's walking up to this. One of them's got Satan and Company on the back of its head, and it's all. And I was making video outside of like parents smoking dope with children on their shoulders. There's more than one like that. It's just like, and this was sponsored by the government, because as you're walking into the expo, and I photographed all this, key offices in the Argentinian government, their emblems were up there, like, various. I'll send you the photos, or maybe I should just publish them. I didn't think to publish those today because I was publishing other components of the expo, but I should have put up, the emblems of like it might have been like Department of Agriculture, Department of Health, that sort of thing, right? So I mean, so these things are the perfect evil. You can make huge amounts of money while you're destroying your enemy and taking over their countries.
That's what they did with the vax too. I mean, with the money laundering, with the NGOs, it's all the same concept. You rip them off, you harvest all the assets while you're destroying the country, and you get rich at the same time. I mean, we've seen that. It's a pattern. We've seen that over and over.
It is. And they have many books. If you look at how to like weaponized migration, there's so many books on that. I mean, I just bought 4 more today, right? And so like 20 minutes before you and I are coming on, I just bought 4 more books on weaponized migration, right? They don't call one book is called The Weapons of Mass Migration. I've had that for a long time, but so that I've read that one. But then there's these other books that I just found, and it's the economics of migration, right? And so these are printed by a company that also they've got the economics of music, which is very interesting, because drugs are the primary WMD is drugs when you're doing psychological operations. Let's say information operation is the highest form of warfare, right? Yeah. But the juice of that is drugs. Now, unsubordinate right next to drugs, but I would say a little brother, is music. Music is absolutely key, right? And so music is so powerful. Like, so many people have asked me, like, why don't you have PTSD? We've talked about this before. And depressed people all my life, for some reason, have come up to me and asked me or told me they're depressed or whatever. And I'm like, let's look at your music. Look, you're listening to music that's all about, if it's country, it's all about, I got drunk and my dog ran away and the girlfriend left and wrecked my truck, stuff like that, right? If it's rap, it's like, we got high and got everybody pregnant and killed a cop. It's like,
I was drunk when my mama got out of prison.
Exactly. It's like, and then it becomes self-fulfilling, right? Yeah. And so when you find people that are depressed, just ask them what music they're listening to. I'm like, stop listening to this crap. No wonder people are jumping off the freaking Golden Gate Bridge. You know what I mean? It's like, stop listening to that crap. Go for a walk in the sunshine. No more of that alcohol crap. No more of those drugs. Get off of that crap and you'll be fine. It's like magic.
Did you see the article came out that people are being involuntary committed after spiraling into Chat GPT psychosis? Very similar. They're using Chat GPT, and it's mentally weak people, and it's like reinforcing some bad things that are happening in their psyche, and it drives them
Good
crazy.
Lord.
It's fascinating.
Somebody mentioned today on a group call. It's a bunch of serious players on this call actually, and one of them mentioned that now some school system is setting up a program so that I think it might have been Chat GPT will actually be their professors. I'm like, what could go wrong with this?
Go wrong?
I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So
What
are we
could
going
not
to
go wrong with it?
Is the U.S. going to do anything about these issues, the drug shops, the fentanyl? I know, supposedly the administration is trying the farmland next to the military bases. It's all out up in your grill right now. I mean, but I don't see an aggressive enough attempt to stop it.
I don't either. And so, one of the reasons I'm not in this whole ecosystem with Tucker and whatnot, I've been on a show and I messaged him today, actually.
Yeah.
But I'm not in that ecosystem, right?
You're not
Because
in conservative Inc. I'm not
What's
either.
that?
You're not in conservative Inc. I'm not either.
No. Yeah, it is. And so I attack Joe Rogan all the time, right? Because I call him Doper Joe, and all the bong monkeys come out. Oh, you're not into freedom. You imagine how low your intellect has to be when your demonstration of freedom is that you can smoke a bong and be worthless, right?
Yeah.
And they'll always go, "What about alcohol, man?" Yeah, that too. We get it. Trust me. Guess what? A lot of the bong monkeys, they think that nobody understands it like they do. It's like, you don't have any idea listen, long before our great grandparents were born, they were much more expert on this than any of the bong monkeys today, right? And they think it all just kind of popped up yesterday. You know what I mean? Like when I was born, suddenly we were enlightened with LSD. It's like you have no idea what you're talking about. It's like but the bottom line is also that it's been used as a weapon on a huge scale, has been going on at a minimum for centuries. I find it all the time in books that I didn't expect to see it in. I'll be reading about, the Native Americans or something, and here comes another, it's just, or the Spaniards in Guatemala, using intoxicants to rip off the Indians, or the Chinese in Formosa. I found that in an 1892 book by a Canadian missionary. He was a dentist named McKay, Charles McKay, and he's talking, Geo McKay, and there was another Charles McKay who did Popular Delusions book in 1841. That's why I mix those up. But this whole thing has been going on for a long time, and now it's been brought to a high art because now we can be programmed with these things, these machines, and the intoxicants and people are taught to believe that you're expressing your freedom by being a worthless bong monkey. You know what I mean? You're enlightened. You wouldn't believe it. Yeah, you would believe, because you live on planet Earth like I do, and we meet the same people all the time, right? People with PhDs and stuff telling you how enlightened they are because they do mushrooms and crap. And I'm like, do you take dab? It's like, yes. I mean, if you did, you're not that enlightened, right? It's just the brainwashing is so intense. And keep in mind, we are born, by the time we were born, not by the time we were born, by the time our great grandparents were born, we were born into a cathedral of intense brainwashing, right?
Yes.
So you're born on the savannah, surrounded by lions and hyenas and vultures that are ready to eat you. I mean, and so here you are, struggling to stand up. You just were born, and you're getting hit with all this stuff. And by the time you can run and jump over a log, you think you know everything, right? So it's like, and part of the brainwashing is to make you feel like that. Is to strip away your humility and make you think that just because you've got pubic hair, suddenly you're Nostradamus and you're Aristotle, right? It's like, but that is actually part of the brainwashing, is to make you feel like you know more than people that have been looking at this forever.
Everybody's looked in the past 5 years and all of a sudden realized everything they learned was garbage. I mean, but I think there's a cleansing of the gene pool going on, because I had a friend, my wife was telling me about one of her friends who, I won't mention her name, but is like vaxxed 8 times, and she has all these problems, and she's constantly in the hospital, and she's like, what do I do? I'm like, I'm sorry, but she probably isn't going to make it. Right. I mean, she made a bad decision. And that those people just aren't going to make it, or at least aren't going to propagate their seed and become successful families. I mean, they're just not, because that's what they were attempted to do. And then unfortunately they didn't have the intellectual, curiosity to not take that jab.
It's big boy rules. I mean, and we're going against very sophisticated people. And so by the time we're born, they know how to bait that trap. The new mouse it keeps falling in the old trap, right?
Yeah.
And actually a lot of the way people could escape a lot of the stuff if they actually did study some of the techniques that are used. For instance, if people were to read the old book called Rape of the Mind, right? Which came out in 1956 by Joost Meerloo, a Dutch psychologist. If you read Rape of the Mind, that can help you be much more tuned in and more resilient to what they're actually doing to us, right? Read that book. Read Popular Delusions from 1841 by Charles Mackay, right? Not the other Mackay that was the dentist in Formosa, but I mean the Memoirs of Popular Delusions and the Madness of Crowds is the name of it. Memoirs of Popular Delusions, Madness of Crowds. Everybody should read it. Plus, it's just interesting. It's super interesting, but you'll see that, hey, that's the world we live in right now, and some of the stuff that he's discussing in the Memoirs of Popular Delusions and the Madness of Crowds are things that happened in the 1600s, like tulip mania, right? Yeah. Tulip mania. You watch Bitcoin today, and I had some people angry at me today on a call, and because I'm like, Bitcoin is tulip coin. I call it tulip coin. There is nothing about this that looks legit. Zero. That big zero. Nothing about Bitcoin looks legit. I mean, it screams, I'm a fraud, and yet serious people are falling for it, and they get upset. Like some were just, hitting me with chat after this call, like, well, what's your solution? What do you offer? I'm like, I don't have a solution. I'm not an investment advisor, which pisses them off. Oh, so you're just pointing to problems all the time. And I'm like, all I'm saying is that's what's called a landmine. And I'm just saying, don't step on that mine. I'm not telling you how to get to Atlanta. I'm not telling you how to get rich. I'm not telling you how to save in gold or silver or platinum or any other stuff. Don't step on that mine. One time I'll tell you the story of the Israeli and the river, right? So I was up in northern India. This is a true story. I'm up in northern India, right? And I stayed with Israelis a lot, and I used to love to travel with Israelis, but they smoke a lot of dope. Every night they're out there smoking their dope, right? And they're getting all high. And anyway, I'd talk with them about India and Israel and stuff. I traveled with them for months, different groups of them. And so this one guy, one morning, I'd been with them the night before, and they're doing their dope thing. And because they all get together at night, then at daytime they spread out and do the thing. And so down, the sun's coming up, and I'm going to go out in the jungle. I was hunting some people actually in the jungle, and some cannibals actually. But this guy named Ori Yelinek was his name. He was 23. So you could find these things on the internet. You might have to search in Hebrew. His name was Ori Yelinek. He was 23 years old. He was staying in the same guest house. He'd been smoking dope the night before. He's going down to the Ganges River with his inner tube. I'm talking flood stage. So if you look up the date when he died and look at the rains and look at the height of the Ganges River, which you could find in archives easily, you'll see there are like trees coming down, 4 whirlpools, loud. And I said, Ori, what are you doing? And he's being a young man. He's 23. But when I was 23, I wouldn't have done
Immortal.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But when I was 23, I had been a Green Beret for 5 years. I wouldn't have done that shit. You know what I mean? I'd seen too many broken legs and everything else. And but so I said, Ori, don't do it. Just stop for a minute. Listen to the river. You hear that roar? That's the roar of your death, right? And so and he crossed the river and he died. So we never found him, right? We never found his body. We looked for days, right? But the point is, I didn't offer him a solution like I'm walking across the bridge, and because he wasn't trying to get across the river, he was trying to go across on an inner tube. He was trying to be cool. He was trying to do high, I'm high in 23 stuff, and now he's dead, right? And we never found his body. And so, but the point is, it's the same with the Bitcoin. I didn't say, or you could just walk across a bridge, which is right here. He died right by the bridge. And that's, and he was not trying. And it's the same with Bitcoin. It doesn't say they want to go Bitcoin because of whatever reasons, and it's going to end up biting them. You can see it. It's so obvious. It's almost embarrassing. It's more obvious than the death jab, actually. Yeah.
Wow. So could talk about that all day. But what about you mentioned Panama? What's going on down there? Give me an update there, please.
Panama, there's been a lot of U.S. military traffic is picking up. Like yesterday, I think it was yesterday now, there was at least 2 C-5s at Howard Air Force Base, which is now Panama Pacifico. And one of them flew out. There was a executive 737 there as well. And but one of the C-5s flew out, and the other was getting an engine replaced. But so there's a lot of C-5 and other military traffic. Of course, we've had so many top Americans down there recently in recent months, like Department of State, Department of Homeland Security, CIA. Ratcliffe was down there, DCI was down there, Department of Defense, of course, was there. So I mean, and a lot more that aren't hitting the. Well, actually, when DCI went, the director of CIA, Ratcliffe, wasn't in the news at all, to my knowledge, but he was there. And so you can see all the players are coming to the table, and clearly we're getting ready for. I've been going down there a lot. I've spent more than a year there since Biden was installed because I'm just smelling the water here, and I think something's going to kick off, and I think something's going to kick off in Armenia too. Back over, and
I'm actually on my way there.
Armenia.
Yeah, I've wanted to cover some of the Christian persecution there and the Nagorno-Karabakh issue for some time. In fact, I was there several years ago, and I kicked myself for not going up to Nagorno before the war kicked off. But I think that's a critical one in multiple reasons. One, the whole Russian Azeri thing is happening right now. We've got the Christian persecution. There's just a lot of things all together. Iran's right there. The Caucasus. It's fascinating.
Yeah, Israel is supplying the weapons to the Muslims to kill the Christians, and actually the Muslims of Iran are defending the Christians in Armenia. This is how twisted this is. It's like you have to say this really slowly to let it sink in, because it's kind of a lot to say. Christian Armenians are getting smashed by Azeri Shia, and then Iran is like, Shia, leave them alone, while Israel pours weapons on the people killing the Christians. So I mean, you can't make up this stuff. And you can see there's a clear information war coming out of Israel, setting up the Christians to be genocided. It's obvious. Israel is already supplying the weapons. They have been doing that for years. But you can see, like just a couple of hours ago, I was looking at Jerusalem Post and some other outlets there in Israel, and they're clearly setting up in English, setting up the Armenians, because they're like, a synagogue has been, defiled with graffiti, that sort of stuff, which could have easily been Azeris, or it could have been Israelis, or more likely it was Azeris who were sponsored by Israelis, right? And because they need that casus belli, right? And because especially now, as Americans start to realize that, hey, because people like me and you, we're saying it in front of millions of people. I'm saying it constantly. The Israelis, full stop, are selling weapons to genocide Christians. Full stop, not ambiguous, not hidden, not conspiracy theory. Get on an airplane, go look, right? And the army and America is giving approval to the Israelis to do this, right? It's all about the Caspian Sea and these routes and resources, right? It's not about
what's going on in Ukraine. I've had Bob Amsterdam on many times, the attorney for the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, and I mean, what they're doing in Ukraine is off the charts bad for Christians. So anyway, that's the focus of ours. We're going to be talking about all these areas, and I'm going there. So if you're going to Armenia, let me know.
I was actually thinking about it because I love Armenia. I spent maybe a month there with Stock and I. And you'll love you've been to Armenia, right?
Yeah.
I have. So you know how good the people are, and it's just wonderful. You can sit there and have tea and look at Mount Ararat. I mean,
and you go up to Lake Savan and you get in these Christian churches that are thousands of years old, and you look at it and this is like the original Christian country in in that region. So it's fascinating.
It is. I mean, everybody should go to Armenia. And actually, that would be one of the worst things that could happen to Israel, because when people go to Armenia, they like the Armenians and they realize they're extremely peaceful. But they're surrounded by people that want to destroy them, who are being funded by Israel, by our tax money, right? By American tax money.
Well, the Armenian genocide is huge too. That's a whole nother thing that people really is not taught in school at all.
No, it's not.
So
they have a museum there in Yerevan. I went to that one, the Genocide Museum. So people who visit Yerevan, go to Armenia, the capital is Yerevan, you should go to that museum, the Genocide Museum.
Well,
there's a lot of serious Armenians that live in the United States, like in California.
Oh,
and
yeah,
obviously,
the diaspora is huge. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Anything else people need to know about?
No, sir. Other than I'm here in Japan, and we're looking at Masako. Last night talked with a pediatric oncologist for about 3 hours, and in Japan's post-jab death rate seems to be the highest in the world, according to the statistics they've been collecting.
I've been reading that.
Yeah. And Masako, she knows all the key scientists, so we're out with them pretty regularly, like Dr. Murakami and all those. But now we're also in Nagoya right now, which is where I think Vance recently said drugs are flowing through here to the United States, but there's actually some Japanese drug zombies now. And so we're going to go check that out and check out hopefully it's not too bad, but there's clearly some drug zombies. We haven't physically seen them yet. We've just seen videos, but we're going to go check it out and see what's going on.
Michael, thank you very much for your time, man. Really appreciate you carving it out. I know you're slammed, and thanks. Appreciate it. Take care.
Never too busy for you.
Cool. Ciao. Take care.
Watching my friends gain more and more weight, and then eventually I got to tell you, this is a little dark, but bad diet literally killed my whole crew.
Wow.
Diabetes, a stroke, I mean, all kinds of stuff. It's like, you had a stroke? You're not even 50 years old. You guys got to quit eating this stuff. Your body knows what's what. You're not conscious of this. But that's why people will go to the refrigerator and they'll grab this and that and the other and put together this outrageously elaborate combination of foods. Your body's trying to reach balance. Unbeknownst to us, our bodies are always trying to reach homeostasis. You can't eat all of this stuff and expect to live a long time. And one thing led to another, and I went, forget this. We're going to make our own product. So we partnered with one of the world's top 3 biochemists where nutrition-specific study is concerned. I said, all I want is the best nutritional and immune support product in the world. So we mixed it in yogurt. It's a powder. I got a bag of it here. I keep one on the console all the time, just so I can show people.
Yeah.
And it's a powder. Now, this is not candy. This is hardcore nutrition. And sugar is an enemy. And most people do not know that the reason these bellies are showing up on people all over the place, your body makes fat to store the toxins it can't get rid of. So it just puts them over here. But I can tell you this. You take this for 30 days and then lay off of it for 2 or 3 days, and you'll go, good grief, give me some more. Skin, nails, hair growing back. Cut yourself and it heals in half the time.
I'm David Cross, and you may know me from my election integrity work, but I also own U.S. Asset Management, an investment advisory practice. I've been an advisor for nearly 30 years, and one of the questions I get asked most frequently is, do I have enough money relative to other people my age? And while that's an interesting question, it's also the wrong question. The right question is do you have enough money to sustain your lifestyle for the rest of your life? This is a question you should know the answer to. This is what we do. Check us out at us-am.com and look for our big proud American Eagle logo.
We have foot, slogging over Africa. Foot, slogging over Africa. Boot, moving up and down again. There's no discharge in the war. 7, 6, 11.
Welcome back to the SCIF. Hope you enjoyed Michael. Always interesting conversation, that's for sure. I want to highlight real quick my novel Currency. That's weird. Here we go. That is it. It's at historyofbooks.com, been re-released. Historyofbooks.com and their Vindicta, our joint venture with History of Books. So actually check it out. The reviews are off the charts. There's over 500 reviews. One thing I always get is that feeling of just not wanting to stop reading. I stayed up all night. It should be a movie. So check out Currency, the first in the Connor Murray series, the other two novels, and the third separate novel will be out through History of Books soon. So thank you for that. Please support free media, support us. It's a great way to do it. And great reading for the summer, for the train, for the airplane, for the cruise, whatever. Currency by L Todd Wood. Let's talk about some stories. Let's go through the mission brief real quick. I'm your host, L Todd Wood. Today is July 2nd, and here's your mission brief. Russia and Azerbaijan duke it out. This is important. We're going to continue to stay on this story. It has to do with Armenia, Russia, Ukraine, Iran, Israel, as Michael was saying. There's a lot of involvement of different countries in this region, and this is popping up kind of out of the blue, but it's not out of the blue, and we're going to make you very smart on it, so you'll be the smartest in your office or at the church or at the water cooler knowing what's happening. Ukraine weapons flow is drying up. That's a big story. Trump started turning it off a while ago, but it looks like all the ammunition going over there as far as Patriot missiles, artillery shells, etc. Finally, we're starting to take care of American stockpiles that have been reduced intentionally, in my opinion, but that is going to be restored and refilled, and that can't happen quick enough. And I don't know if we have the industrial capacity to do it quick enough, but it looks like the Trump administration is going to try. A big story that I want to talk about is Mike Huckabee, and I called him a warmonger yesterday. We'll dig into that. Continued Georgia political drama. This is huge. Another just huge story in the news that you need to be aware of, because the Georgia cabal is cracking, and that's a good thing. And then the drugging of America. You heard Michael Yon talk about that. Another focus we're going to have is the unrestricted warfare on the U.S. by the CCP and other elements, the Iranians, other Islamists, globalists, that is trying to destroy our country in a variety of means. You've seen it happen, play out real time in front of you, up in your grill, with the education, with this crime, with everything. And that is part of it, is the drugs. Of course, there's smoke shops on every corner, as I was talking about with Michael. So let's dig into some of those stories first. Bring this up. Pentagon halts shipments of ammunition to Ukraine as the Kremlin conflict with Azerbaijan grows. This is on our Eastern European site, Tsarism.com, which is named that way. People always ask, why is it named that way? It's named that way because we cover the Tsarist Empire from Poland all the way to San Francisco. There's a Fort Roos in San Francisco. You all know about the Russian River in Alaska, the old believers in Alaska that were sent there, and then we bought the Alaska from the Tsar. Because he had needed money for the Crimean War. Isn't that interesting how the big circle always goes around? So if you're interested in that region of the world, this is probably the biggest region of the world, go to Tsarism.com, Tsarizm.com, and you can find it out and stay with it and be very smart. But it looks like, and Trump has announced, in Ukraine confirmed today, that the Trump administration is stopping a lot of the weapons flow to Ukraine. It's very specific on certain weapon systems, but it doesn't talk about what they're continuing to send. So that's curious, but it's not everything, but it's a lot of it. And it is, if you go there, I'll just pull that up real quick and you can see it. Stingers, GMLRS rockets, AIM-7 missiles, Hellfire missiles, 155 millimeter artillery shells, PAC-3 Patriot interceptors. So this is air defense, it's artillery, it's offensive missiles on the battlefield, it's air-to-air missiles, which is the AIM-7, Stingers, which is ground-to-air, shoulder-fired, typically with a heat-seeking missile. This is big, and it's going to shut down the war. And I saw something this morning that Ukraine has the ability to fund the war, or the equipment to prosecute the war through the end of the summer, and then supplies are going to get critical. So this is a good thing. We're going to have Pete Blaber on later in the second hour and talk about all of this, but it's critically important to stop the war, and the best way we can stop the war is to stop sending them weapons and stop sending them our money. And we definitely don't need to be sending our boys and girls over there to fight to the last Ukrainian and to get the U.S. military involved. This conflict needs to end. It's somebody else's war that we're fighting, and we don't like it here at CDM. We've been very vocal on it. I've traveled around the country and spoke on it. I have a Stop the Ukraine War tour, which you can see some of the appearances we've made on the top menu on cdm.press. But we are against this war. We've been against it since 2014 when we started writing about it. It's not our war. It's a border war, and it needs to end. And I tell people, you don't have to agree with what Vladimir Putin did, but you need to understand why he did it. And that is critical to really having an informed opinion of the conflict. And it's something that we try to do here, which is inform you about the conflict. So check that out. A great story. And we're going to talk about that with Pete in the second hour. Now let's go to Gaza. Trump said this morning on a post on Truth Social, Israel agrees to the conditions for a 60-day ceasefire in Gaza. This is really important. We're coming off the Iran conflict, the 12-day war, as Trump likes to call it. There's a ceasefire there, but Gaza is raging. And you heard Michael Yon talk about that. Heard it in a cold open also. Gaza has been really destroyed. Most of it is flattened and gone. It's just rubble. Literally, over 2/3 of the region is just as Piers Morgan was saying, not that I'm a fan of his, but that it is a parking lot. And so what are you going to do with it? How are you going to make that place right to actually house humans in a humane way, with all the unexploded ordnance, with the craters, with the shafts that you can fall down into? It's a disaster, and it's amazing how anybody's surviving there at all. And the Israelis did admit, which we reported on early last week, that there was accusations that they were shooting unarmed protesters coming to get food. They denied that initially, but then said, well, yeah, we were, but we weren't targeting them intentionally, and some may have been killed. So there you go with that. But the Gaza conflict is looking to hopefully end as well. I know President Trump wants a ceasefire, and we'll see if we get it. My thoughts are that the Gazans or Hamas probably won't. They're still being supported by Iran, and this is one way Iran can continue to meddle in the region. Although the Saudis, if you scroll down in this article, the Saudis said that Israel must remove Hamas from power in Gaza before normalization can occur, reported I24 News in Israel. So we'll see what goes on there. Trump wants a ceasefire. He needs it for a lot of reasons, but the killing needs to stop in the Middle East as well. It's been going on too long, and no matter what you think about Hamas, the Gaza people don't deserve this, in our opinion. So we would like to see the killing stop here as well. But it's the Gazans are just part of this conflict as well. I mean, they could have ended this a long time ago and returned the hostages, and they did not. So we're not blaming either side. We're just saying that the killing needs to end, in our opinion. I want to go back to this article with Russia and the conflict with Azerbaijan. So Azerbaijan is a former Soviet Socialist republic, and it's always been under the boot of the Russian Empire. And it looks like that conflict is raising its head again. We call it a frozen conflict of the Soviet Union, the Nagorno-Karabakh area. But that is continuing as there's been arrests on both sides of, Russia arrested some people in Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan arrested some Russians. You saw that in the cold open. Russia's saying they were criminals. Azerbaijan shut down the media in Russia. And so this conflict is raging. We're likely going to be over there in person soon to see this with ourselves and report on it. But I just wanted to make you aware of it because this is an old conflict and it's being supported by others, and it's bigger because it looks like Zelensky is also getting support from Azerbaijan against Russia. Russia has troops in Armenia next door. They have peacekeepers in Nagorno-Karabakh. It's a mess. We'll take a break and we'll be right back and dig into some other stories, and then we'll have Pete Blaber, so stay with us.
Okay, ready?
Ready. So we're out in the field in South Dakota shooting pheasants, and we're coming out here to a Milo field you can see behind us, and I was throwing in an ALK. Someone else was using a tobacco product. And then somebody, and I'm not going to name names, pulled that out in public at a hunt. And so that's obviously yesterday. What we have here, ALP, is tomorrow, and we're going to make that official by symbolically ending the long reign of this product. Willie Robertson happened to be hunting with us. We don't have a mechanical fur, but we do have former U.S. Senator Rick Santorum of Pennsylvania. With an arm. Willie's got a 12 gauge. I've got my trusty 20. And we're going to see what we can do to usher out the Zen aircraft. Yes! So, I should say, alppouch.com, for sale now, alppouch.com, usher in tomorrow a brand new world of nicotine pouches, the American Lip Pillow, on sale now. Warning! This product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive.
I'm David Cross, and you may know me from my election integrity work, but I also own U.S. Asset Management, an investment advisory practice. I've been an advisor for nearly 30 years, and one of the questions I get asked most frequently is, do I have enough money relative to other people my age? And while that's an interesting question, it's also the wrong question. The right question is do you have enough money to sustain your lifestyle for the rest of your life? This is a question you should know the answer to. This is what we do. Check us out at us-am.com and look for our big, proud American Eagle logo.
Welcome back. 1 second. Sorry about that. Producing on the fly is normal here at the SCIF. We've got guests coming in and out, trying to rearrange the schedule, and it's a little hectic sometimes. So thanks for bearing with us. I want to pick a bone with Ambassador Huckabee. We put out an article yesterday that I was really offended. I've watched Ambassador Huckabee, Mike Huckabee, former governor of Arkansas. His daughter is now the governor of Arkansas. She was the Trump administration spokesman in the first term. But Ambassador Huckabee has been very pro-Israel, which is fine, but he's also very pro-involving American armed forces in the conflicts over there. And I find that disgusting. I find it offensive. It's not his role. I wrote an article, and I'll put this up here, that Trump should fire Ambassador Huckabee. Because he's a warmonger. I mean, he's pushing for war. He's pushing and what bothers me, he's pushing for American involvement in the conflict. Yesterday, there was a ballistic missile over Israel fired from Yemen. And the ambassador, not the commander-in-chief or the president of the United States, but the ambassador said, well, maybe American B-2 bombers need to visit Yemen. I mean, that is a disgusting, irresponsible, immature, warmongering comment, and I was very vocal about that, as I am now. It's disgusting to me, and Huckabee has a history of trying to manipulate the president with religion and with other things, and I wrote a lot about this yesterday. You can read it on cdm.press, but I find it disgusting, and I think he needs to resign. He doesn't have respect. He doesn't have the judgment, and he doesn't speak for me as an American. So that's all I want to say about that. But Huckabee, I think, needs to go. It's really bad what's happening with his comments, and that continues. And if it does continue, we're going to continue to talk about it. I want to highlight Georgia one more time. We went into it in depth yesterday with BKP, but this story is not going away. You can go to the Georgia Record, georgiarecord.com, and find the update on the First Liberty Building and Loan fiasco, which was seized by the feds yesterday, run by the Frost family in Georgia. Now, what you need to understand about the Frost family is they have been the ones supporting McCoon, the chairman of the GOP, and they were very involved in what we believe was the rigging of the Georgia GOP convention a few weeks ago. which really upset MAGA. And you've got a situation in Georgia where it's essentially fascism, where the governor and the whole apparatus and the GOP, the leadership of the GOP, not the grassroots, but the leadership is working in conjunction with Kemp and others with foreign companies, China, Hyundai, China Chemical, all of these, putting them above the interests of the Georgia people. And it's really interesting that this was seized by the feds at this time. The timing's amazing because it pulls out from under the GOP apparatus in Georgia, one, a large funding source, which was the Frost family. There's the Frost family PAC, which Brant Frost there runs. So this was a big hit against the establishment in Georgia, and it remains to be seen what's going on and what will happen and what will happen to the GOP leadership and how they respond, because they've been eerily quiet after this, which we find fascinating as well. So we'll stay on that story, obviously, because we have the Georgia show. And by the way, we'll probably start back on Wednesday nights with the Georgia show with Bill Quinn, since he's recovered from having his neuro implant reprogrammed. But he's back up and well, and it looks like that show we'll have Sunday at 2:00 and also Wednesday night again next week at 7, because we have a lot of candidate interviews and other things like that to get out. Let's talk real quick about precious metals. This is a silver round. We had a really good day of business with Advisor Metals yesterday with some orders come through. Thank you for that. Thank you for all our viewers for trusting us in our judgment on bringing you very good. Oh, that's another point. This, we talked about Georgia and the First Liberty. This was pushed by Conservative Inc. across the board, from Turning Point, Charlie Kirk, to Real America's Voice, to John Frederick's Radio. They were all pushing this product, the First Liberty product, which just went bankrupt, and looks like many investors have lost a lot of money, if not all of it. We don't know the situation and how it's going to be recovered, but it's not good. So we're not going to do that to you. All right. So when we say Advisor Metals, we've checked out all of their background, their regulatory report, their custodians, the bankers. We've talked to all of them. We mean what we say. He's a patriot, Ira Bashatsky at Advisor Metals and his team. If you speak with them, you can trust them. They're patriots. They're on your team. They're not trying to rip you off. They're not a pushy salesman. They will just have a conversation with you and see how you can protect your hard-earned assets, whether it's inside of an IRA or just cash assets that you want in a different asset class. These are the silver rounds. You can order some of these and have them on hand as barter in case the economy collapses or the banking system collapses, which is always a possibility with a cyber attack or whatever. You need to continue to function and buy things and function in a basic economy. And you can do that with the silver rounds you can get from Advisor Metals. So go to cdmmetals.com and you can fill out the form for Advisor Metals and they will contact you. And again, it's an easy conversation. It's not a pushy conversation at all. So that being said, that's enough of that. I'm going to take another break because we didn't take many breaks during the Michael Yon thing. So I need to pay a little more bills, and then we'll come back at the bottom of the hour. We got Pete Blaber for the Ukraine SitRep, but I also want to show a little bit of our other show out in Colorado, which is really popular, especially with the younger audience. So I just want to get you attuned to that show. So if you're interested in Colorado, you can know when it comes on. It's Wednesdays at 2 p.m. 2 p.m. Eastern, which is 12 o'clock Mountain. Every week, but it's a great show. We love it. We love the people there, and it's really popular. It's one of our best shows numbers wise. So with that, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back and talk about Ukraine and show a little bit of the Colorado show. Stay with us.
Well, in the case of hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin, these are two medications that have been FDA approved for use in humans for decades. They are very, very inexpensive. Interestingly, available over the counter in almost every other country other than the US and Canada. You can just walk into a pharmacy and buy them like we buy Tylenol in much of the world because they're that safe. And we've known for decades that ivermectin has very strong antiviral properties. It has anti-inflammatory properties, and both ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine are what we call zinc ionophores. They help to move zinc from the bloodstream into the cell, which is where it needs to be in order to fight off a virus. So lots of application for these, and we have every reason to believe that those drugs also will likely have some efficacy against H5N1 or a number of other respiratory viruses that we may meet down the road.
If you haven't noticed, gold has reached a new high, all-time highs actually, and keeps going up every day. Why is that? It's because precious metals are a long-time historical store of value. And if you own a portfolio and you have assets in the fiat currencies, i.e. stocks, bonds, cash, or whatever, you're vulnerable to hyperinflation, which is coming as our debt explodes another trillion every 90 days. It's really scary. So how do you protect yourself? Go to Advisor Metals. If you look on any of our CDM.press sites, about halfway down, there's an ad for Advisor Metals. Click on it, fill out the form for your contact info, and Ira Bishotsky will contact you and talk to you. It's an easy conversation. There's no sales pitch. He's completely verified by us. He has a regulatory background we've checked into. We've checked with his bankers. We've checked with his IRA custodians for metals, and we can highly recommend Advisor Metals and IRA. So go to Advisor Metals. If you call them directly, tell them we sent you at CDM, and he'll definitely take care of you. But protect your portfolio because you really need to. It's coming. Thank you. Welcome back to the SCIF. We're going to have Pete Blaber at the bottom of the hour on the Ukraine SitRep. I'm going to play a little bit of our Colorado show, which started again last week after Ash Epp, the editor of the Colorado Free Press. And let me bring that paper up real quick so you know where it is. If you're interested in Colorado, check this out. The ColoradoFreePress.com, ColoradoFreePress.com for our audio audience. And get the news from Colorado. We run to the sound of the guns. People are saying, why do you want to put a paper in Colorado? It's very blue, and you know but we run to the sound of the guns. We think Colorado needs help, and the Colorado Free Press, ColoradoFreePress.com is doing that. And the Colorado show 12 p.m. Wednesdays Mountain Time. And I'm going to play a little bit of that show and just give you a feel for it. Ash Epp and the team do great, Darren and Karen. But this is last week's, but it will be today at noon, or actually 2 p.m. Eastern, noon Mountain Time. But here we go. A little bit of a taste of the Colorado show.
Hey, we're live. Look at that.
No, look at that. Look at that.
Yeah, Darren's not turning his camera on today.
I have company, so it would be inappropriate to have everybody on camera that doesn't want to be on camera. So
all right, there's ways around that, but we'll move past it.
I'm not moving to another room. That's why.
It's been like a month since we've done this show. Everybody's just gonna have to remember what you look like because, you know.
That's me right there. That's me right there.
Vaccine Waters.
It's a very accurate depiction of me.
Where is Darren?
Where is Elon?
Darren? What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Colorado Show, the most serious news show in the Centennial State.
Yeah,
not
sure.
True. Well, we treat the news of Colorado. We treat the news of Colorado with the level of respect that it deserves on this show, and it's been pretty crazy. We have a guest joining us today, a good friend of the show, super of my home, Val Al, is joining us to talk about some of the insanity that we've seen. We've got a little bit of breaking news, which is good. We have breaking good news, which is rare in Colorado, but we have some breaking good news that we'll get to. Before we do that, we're going to hear from our sponsors, and we will be right back. And we are joined by Val at Super of My Home on X. Val, welcome back to the show. It's good to see you.
Thanks for having me. I missed the picture up there in that corner, though.
I know, right? It's disappointing for all of us. So we have like a little bit of breaking news today. We've been talking about in Colorado the fact that camps and Idaho camp specifically. My kids went to Idaho when they were younger. Really cool camp. They sleep in teepees. It's awesome. But they were pushing back on a new requirement to co-locate bathrooms gender-wise based on, self-declared gender identity of the kids attending the camp. And Idaho stands for I'd rather have Jesus. It's a Christian camp. And they pushed back and today got a religious exemption from the state to, they won, essentially. They won today, which is great. We're excited about that. But I misunderstood what was happening with this, Val, and you corrected me before the show. So I want to make sure everybody understands where this requirement came from.
Right. So in 2024, the Colorado Department of Early Childhood decided to start stakeholding for new policy changes in January of 2024, which is interesting because the bill that they're attributing these changes to didn't actually get passed till like April of 2024. So they started stakeholding for these policy changes well in advance of the bill even being passed. But the bill that actually pushed this through is a forced licensure bill, SB 24071. That was actually sponsored by two Republicans on there, Matt Soper and Janice Rich. And so what they did as part of this new forced licensure is they decided, well, part of that new requirement was going to be housing. So not only just like bathroom use and showers, it's housing based off gender and not biological sex. And Camp Idaho attempted on multiple occasions to try to get a religious exemption. And according to the Federalist, we're told not only that they were rejected, but if they didn't like it, lawyer up. And so they lawyered up.
Well, hang on a second. When they were stakeholdering, which the term itself drives me nuts. It's a made up term. It's, I was in communications and change management for 20 years, and we did stakeholder analysis. It's how you understand and identify the different interests in your change effort and how you decide how understand who you need to move, right? Who do you need to move along the change curve? And I support the idea of meeting with the different interest groups and constituent groups in at government endeavors, right? If you're attempting to write a bill about something, you should absolutely talk to the people that it's going to impact. Do you know, did they stakeholder with Idaho before they passed this bill?
No, so I called 30 camps. When the lawsuit came out, I called about 30 different camps. 2 of them knew about this. And I looked to see who the proponents of the bill were. I think it was like the Scouts and some other of your typical, the YMCA orgs. So they didn't actually consult any of the Christian camps on this bill.
So a bill that would change the dynamic of a, religious camps in the state of Colorado, those interest groups weren't asked or represented. But when they stand in the well, they'll tell you, we did really strong stakeholdering on this bill. And we went through and we spoke to the people that are impacted or important. No, you talk to your favorite lobby groups who also happen to be pushing real hard for the legislation. And you're now writing for them.
Well, and it also concerns me that the individuals that were on the bill, so even Republicans, didn't think to say to themselves, there's not only secular camps out there, there are religious-based camps. How does this impact them? What are they going to impose on these camps? Nobody questioned it at all.
Yeah, and it's not an oversight. Not in the state of Colorado. There is an attack. There's an attack on Christian, not religious groups broadly, right? There's no. So I think one of the highest church, amount of religious buildings in the nation is Colorado. There's religious buildings everywhere. It's not a war on people being spiritual or having different beliefs. There is a war on traditional Christianity.
I mean,
you see it with
when
Jack
they're
Phillip.
marching down the street talking about hail Satan, that's the problem.
Yeah. Well, that was where was that?
Was that Peak Pride parades? Yeah.
The Pikes Peak Pride Parade, where they were welcoming the Satanic temple in the parade, and then the guy shouts "Hail Satan" at the end to cheers from the crowd.
Jesus.
Yeah, we can find that video actually. But so I had, kind of, moving fast, not paying all of the attention. thought that this had to do with 1312, another awesome bill that we have. But glad that congratulations to Idra Haji for standing in the gap for all Christians and religious institutions that want, that don't want to end up saying Hail Satan because it's required by the state, because that's the direction we're going.
Think they'll do it in schools?
Well done to Idra Haji. But let's talk a little bit about the stuff that passed this this session, Val. You are one of the most informed and involved folks here in the legislative session. Let's start with 1312. Let's talk about that delightful
So
bill.
1312, it was, I think, one day before the end of session was the final third readings in the Senate. So they waited till the last minute. 2 days before session was over, they overhauled the entire bill. And I had heard from various sources that the governor was pushing down to the legislature what he wanted in the bill so as to make it more difficult for organizations or individuals to sue, to have an injunction against it, including I was told that Republicans were aware and were having conversations with the governor. And so it was like 13 pages or something ridiculous. They revamped, changed the entirety of the bill. So from the moment it was introduced—
Did they stakeholder their changes? Did they go back and stakeholder their changes with all the people they stakeholdered with before they totally overhauled the bill?
I don't know. All I know is that none of the parental rights groups were stakeholdered in the first place, because they liken us to the KKK. So
yeah,
we weren't informed.
This bill that impacts parents' fundamental rights over their children, and the parent advocacy groups weren't stakeholdered, but we did really strong stakeholdering.
Correct. I didn't hear it at any point in testimony. I think it was a mad scramble to make sure that their pet project was passed. And that's why the governor got his hands in it and said, these are the amendments we're going to make. And ultimately what it did is it changed CADA to codify—
which is the Colorado Anti-Discrimination Act, for folks that might not know. Yeah.
Which to me is even worse, because that impacts everything in our daily life in Colorado. So now that it's codified within our Discrimination Act, I mean, anything you say, anything you do, businesses, schools, it permeates everywhere. And there are some lawsuits that came out of it, which hopefully will provide an injunction for us against 1312.
Yeah, I want to hear about the lawsuits, but people need to realize this is not, we're not speculating about the type of harm that can be done with this bill. I believe, and I've said on this show before, that the bill is actually to cover for the harm they've already done. They're trying to retroactively make lawful what they've already done with people's children in this state. So now they're trying to lay the groundwork to say, well, it was okay that I had that child move in with me and became lesbian lovers with them, or, took a child from a mother that was fighting cancer. She's fighting cancer. So the kid's already a kind of a traumatic situation at home. And this predator comes in and, oh, I'm just your math teacher and I'm going to be your ally and friend, and takes their child. They've done a lot. It is an epidemic. It's a national story. I named this show today, Colorado is a National Story. And this issue specifically is one of the ones that I was thinking about. And in naming it that is that we hear an outsized number of stories of adults in positions of trust, specifically in the schools, but not just in the schools, adults in positions of trust taking advantage of vulnerable children to have access to them from a sexual standpoint.
Is that the one they took out to the forest?
That's the Smotherman case. Yeah, where the remote farm of misfit kids, where it's a Hotel California for your child. Yeah, this issue is it's all of the things that we voted against. The majority of Americans across the United States of America, all of the major things that we voted against: the immigration stuff, the gender stuff, the election stuff, the economy, the foreign policy, the wars. All of those things they're like still championed here in Colorado.
Well, I mean, that's gonna be a damper on their federal funding, I would say.
if they follow through. If they follow through, it will
Well, I
be.
mean,
And I hope they
I'm
do.
just
And I know that will hurt some Colorado communities, but we got to stop this shit. And as long as they are getting 40% of their budget from the federal government, they have money to do this kind of stuff. They have the ability to focus on social stuff they have no business doing.
Linda McMahon just put the hammer down on California today. They got 10 days.
Nice.
So,
I hope we see it through. Colorado next. All right. Tell us about the lawsuits.
So there is a class action with Dr. Travis Morrell. I believe it's Aaron Lee. And then there's one other individual on there who filed a lawsuit against the state, stating that their organization, so PKC, Protect Kids Colorado, and Dr. Travis Morrell runs a chapter of principled physicians here. And I forget who the third person on it is, but they're basically saying our orgs can't function. We can't do our mission in this state under this law because it's compelling our speech. And then Jennifer Say, whose XXXY org is actually based in Colorado, she also filed a separate lawsuit saying that her business can't function under 1312. And so she would have to shutter her doors in Colorado because of that bill. So hopefully between those two lawsuits, I'm guessing it's going to have to go to the Supreme Court, in all honesty. It'll probably be another 303 that has to go to the Supreme Court for us to get any relief from that bill. I think the positive thing is there's been so much attention. There was so much national attention on 1312. We set a record for how many people showed up to testify. There was about 700 of us in opposition against that bill. I was in the room. There was like 3 or 4 overflow rooms of just people around people. And it was the 700 were in opposition. The chair of that committee tried to make it seem like it was a balanced on both sides, that, they had as many people as we had showing up. That is not true. And only 100 of us got to actually testify against that bill.
That's the thing that I think a lot of people don't realize is that you can have those kinds, and they can just stop it. We've only allotted another 2 hours for testimony, so the 600 of you, sorry, we don't have time to hear from you.
That's crazy.
It's insane. They should not be able to pass laws until every person has had their say about it. Not in the United States of America. When I asked you the question about the restakeholdering after they changed the bill, obviously I don't believe that they did. It was a tongue-in-cheek question, because what we saw with the assault with the 003 gun bill was that bill changed entirely as well. Like, after second reading, it changed it entirely. And after all of the public comment, after all of the stakeholdering that they allegedly did, which I don't believe they stakeholdered with, the NRA or, Rocky Mountain gun owners or any of those groups. No, of course not.
Well, in the case of hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin, these are two medications that have been FDA approved for use in humans for decades. They are very, very inexpensive. Interestingly, available over the counter in almost every other country other than the US and Canada. You can just walk into a pharmacy and buy them like we buy Tylenol in much of the world because they're that safe. And we've known for decades that ivermectin has very strong antiviral properties. It has anti-inflammatory properties, and both ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine are what we call zinc ionophores. They help to move zinc from the bloodstream into the cell, which is where it needs to be in order to fight off a virus. So lots of application for these, and we have every reason to believe that those drugs also will likely have some efficacy against H5N1 or a number of other respiratory viruses that we may meet down the road.
If you haven't noticed, gold has reached a new high, all-time highs actually, and keeps going up every day. Why is that? It's because precious metals are a long-time historical store of value. And if you own a portfolio and you have assets in the fiat currencies, i.e. stocks, bonds, cash, or whatever, you're vulnerable to hyperinflation, which is coming as our debt explodes another trillion every 90 days. It's really scary. So how do you protect yourself? Go to Advisor Metals. If you look on any of our CDM.press sites, about halfway down, there's an ad for Advisor Metals. Click on it. fill out the form for your contact info, and Ira Bishotsky will contact you and talk to you. It's an easy conversation. There's no sales pitch. He's completely verified by us. He has a regulatory background we've checked into. We've checked with his bankers. We've checked with his IRA custodians for metals, and we can highly recommend Advisor Metals and IRA. So go to Advisor Metals. If you call them directly, tell them we sent you at CDM, and he'll definitely take care of you. But protect your portfolio because you really need to. It's coming. Thank you. Sorry about that, producing on the fly here. Guests coming in and out, but we got to the good part of the show. We've got our good friend Pete Blaber with us. He's going to come in, and we're going to do the Ukraine SitRep. Pete's in high demand and has been all over the country talking on these subjects. So, Pete, welcome. Thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me, Todd. Good to see you.
Good to see you again. So, wow, a lot's happened since we last talked. Russia's making progress. They said yesterday that they have control fully of Luhansk, which is one of the original oblasts where all this started. I have a map which I can bring up, but tell us what you see on the front right now.
Yeah, I'll also tell you what I'm hearing from guys who are on the ground in Kyiv, and that I'll start with that they're seeing they've been seeing it through June, but it's really hitting a pitch now. Life is much different in Kyiv. People are definitely fleeing. The people who don't live there and who have the option to flee. The people who do live there are living like the Brits in World War II. Going underground at nighttime, living in fear. Anyone who can get out, two of my sources say, is getting out and has been since the beginning of June. Not coincidentally, we had 5 nights in June where Russia had 500 attacks by drones and combination drones, missiles in the Ukraine region, but Kyiv took the concentration, the majority of those. We talked, I think, in our last episode about the Russian military industrial production and how it ramped up to allow them to use 500 drones a night, and they're definitely there right now.
That's a big change, right? Because just a couple of years ago, they were talking about gold leaf facials in Kyiv, and everybody was living the life, and lots of good-looking girls, and people were just having a great time, and so that's changed, is what you're saying. Yeah,
and it changed pretty much on a dime. I mean, historically, we'll always be able to go back to the strategic bomber, drone attack from trucks that Ukraine pulled off. Really, as we talked on this show again, did nothing for the front lines, did nothing as far as affecting the war, was a massive PR event, but an ill thought, poorly thought out event, and Russia just took the gloves off after that. I think also, to step back, and we'll go back to your map because I want to talk some terrain in a bit.
Sure.
But I think also, can read into it anyway, because we'll never know what went on personally between Putin and President Trump back after that attack on the Russian strategic bombers. But we had the Iran situation pop up, and the world focus was on the Middle East, and it was during that time that Russia tripled down on everything they were doing. It gave them the impetus to, hey, we're gonna finish this thing, and we don't care what any world press says. I would add to that the 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 double dilemma that the West has put itself in by trying not to cover this war to show what's really happening on the front line. They have no one to cover the war, and so there's no Western press showing what's happening either in Kyiv or on the front lines. There's no one running around asking people who are going, getting on the train to Poland or getting in their cars to head to Poland. There's no one asking these people, hey, what are you doing? What's going through your mind right now? But that's what's happening.
That's a good point, because it's like karma, right? I mean, they shut down any press coverage, and now that's biting them in the butt, because it's an info war, and if you don't have anybody shooting on your side of the info war, then you lose, right?
Yeah, very true. And the whole story about the bodies. There's still more bodies. Ukraine tried to turn it into a positive PR for them. They found a body that they said was a Russian body among the 6,000 initial tranche, and that has since been dismissed. Russia got out in front of it, but Zelensky even tried to show that to Trump in Europe. That's what that famous video of him pulling out a piece of paper. It was the ID from one of those guys. But that's another thing that's showing what's going on, and there's plenty of pictures. We won't show them. You just shake your head. They're leaving all these dead bodies in Sunni, just littering the ground. And it shows you two things. It shows you a command that doesn't really care, but it shows you the nature of how this terrain's being taken. It's being taken in a chaotic way. It's not controlled retrograde by Ukraine. These are panicking retreats, and such panic that they're leaving wounded and dead behind. So those numbers are piling up too. You can go back to the map now.
Let me interrupt you real quick. There was a report out that the defenses that were supposed to be built outside Sumy were just not built, and I think the quote was they just tilled up the earth with a backhoe instead of actually building entrenchments that the Ukrainians could use, and they spent billions of dollars or whatever. That was a lot of money, and somebody just took the money, and they're left with no defenses. Have you heard anything about that?
I have, and it's true. It again the real discoveries. There were videos. We'll show them on the next episode. There are videos that show these 18-inch trenches that were scraped out of the ground, and they show that guys were in them, laying in them before they retreated. Again, corruption rearing its ugly head. We've talked about that corruption that's permeated the Ukrainian military, and probably some NGO was tasked with doing that, with the engineering tasks to do that, and what the results are catastrophic. So Russia in the last month has taken 790 square kilometers, which is a lot. And again, for our viewers, they understand this is a light infantry war. There's no blitzkrieg because you can't use armor columns. So it's shoe leather express, and 790 kilometers in a month is a lot of territory. Yeah. And the Russians just continue what works incrementally. They chip away at the flanks to find weaknesses until they get to a point where it's pretty obvious to the Ukrainian military that they're about to be surrounded, and then they put pressure at the front, for frontal pressure, and the lines bend and break every time. And that's what's pretty much been happening over and over on those front lines. And, the manpower shortage is very apparent too. The word on the street in Kyiv is that it's catastrophic. And of course, the same thing's going on around Kyiv and around Ukraine, which is the forced conscription. And no one in the West sees that, but you've been showing it on your show. I think it's important to show because we've watched it through all its phases. We've seen it when it started. We've seen it continue on. We saw it really from 23 on get really bad, and of course now what you have is civilians joining in and helping the force conscriptor, pounding on the guys who are in charge of doing this conscripting. And what you're seeing is those guys aren't fighting back, which shows you that they understand why the civilians are pounding on their back. They actually are showing they have some empathy for them, but it's kind of like, hey,
Right.
This is my job. I got to keep doing it, and so that continues to go on. They're very close to a breaking point here. You mentioned Luhansk has been 100% liberated now, and the offer from Budapest is looking pretty good, and once again looking like it should have been taken by Zelensky. The final thing I'll mention is
one. Well, go ahead. I was going to say I can show that video of the.
But I want to see that video, and then we'll go to.
All right. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
that
a picture's worth 1,000 words. We show them to our viewers so that because there's no other media that'll show it. But just think about that. That one's from 2 days ago. This is still happening every day all over the country. You cannot fight a war when that's happening, and of course you can't win a war. And to kind of summarize what you're really seeing in these weeks right now is the collapse of the global propaganda network. You're seeing direct evidence at what massive lies this has been, and how they've been perpetrated by Zelensky himself, and of course all the EU heads and the Western US influencers, including all the retirees you and I have pointed out in the past.
Yeah, I want to get to what I really want to expose now in this phase is what the real agenda was, because it definitely wasn't for the people of Ukraine. It wasn't for freedom. It wasn't. What is the real agenda? I have a feeling we're going to find out we were fighting somebody else's war, and this is like old ethnic hatreds or something that we are, and the globalist agenda to wear down Russia, but it definitely wasn't for the people of Ukraine. That is a joke.
Yeah, well, you're a historian. The Brits have a institutionalized, bizarre hatred of Russia. It's almost like a big brother, little brother, or it's a weirdest thing from past wars hundreds of years ago, and it makes no sense. But those leaders, those EU leaders, are still sticking by their guns, and they're still claiming they're going to support Zelensky. You saw, I think, just yesterday, the U.S. canceled, verbally told the Ukrainians, "We have no more air defense missiles for you." The unspoken message there was right there. You go. The unspoken message was, we used a giant chunk of those up in the Middle East war. And, this is common sense for the U.S. America first.
It's a good thing. It's what you and I have been calling for.
Yep. And it's what really, it's given Trump, it's real, but it allows the American administration to, just say, we're no more. We're not giving you any more weapons. And I have confidence. We've been saying this the whole time, even during the Middle East crisis, that the relationship between Trump and Putin is strong enough, and it's solid enough, and their discussions are formative enough that Trump knows he can't keep supporting them, or it really is his war. And he can also see now, I believe everybody, including, the last ditch propagandists who the administration, we've covered it, has a few of them embedded, are seeing the writing on the wall right now. What I mentioned in Kyiv cannot be lost on DC, because the only thing the State Department and most of the agency staff that's in Ukraine do is write cables on their computers. And their biggest job is to write about, the temperament of the people and what's happening. And you can see what's happening in Kyiv. Anyone, and it's very obvious. And there's a sense of panic going on there. My buddies both say it's palpable. All the little things are showing up. So things have changed, and what's going to happen next is pretty obvious. Russia's going to continue moving, and I think even Zelensky right now has got to be, scratching his head, thinking, "What do I do? Do I let him go all the way to the river, or do I bend a little bit here?" And then he's got the dilemma with the ultranationalist neo-Nazis who are threatening his life. But that's why Russia won't bend on their demands for denazification. They understand that. And so, Zelensky's got some big choices to make here.
Let me ask you, I'm going to play something. It's about 2 minutes. I won't play all of it, but this is an arrest of Russian spies in Azerbaijan. So this whole conflict is popping up here. So this is an old frozen conflict of the Soviet Union. Azerbaijan was a Soviet Socialist Republic. So was Armenia, and you had the Nagorno-Karabakh region, which popped off a couple of years ago. Again, an old frozen, Christian-Muslim conflict. But now you have the Azeris going after Moscow. Arrested some people in Russia that they said were criminals, and then the Azeris arrested people, as you see, and then you had the media shutdown in Azerbaijan of Sputnik and other Russian operations. Do you know anything about this? I mean, my sense is there's more to it, because I think Azerbaijan was helping Ukraine, and I think there's a whole bigger picture to this than what we just see between the two countries.
Yeah, I think it's tit for tat. I'd have to tap into some people I know who have gone in and out of there to get a better assessment. That video, could show a million things. The fact they pulled that guy out and he was kind of slovenly in a suit makes him look more like he's just one of the
just another guy in a tracksuit in Eastern Europe.
He's an oligarch. He's a guy who makes money, right? And unfortunately drove into a roadblock that had a camera at it. So but it's definitely heating up. And geographically, I don't know if you have a map, a lot of people don't understand that geography, and how that's why one reason why Georgia is so important to Russia. And of course, 2 countries later, you're down in Turkey. So it's a very important flank for Russia. And Todd, a color revolution, the whole color revolution staff is still holding on by a thread in Georgia. They lost the election, but they spent billions of dollars on Georgia trying to flip it. And a great article came out in the European press the other day, and I'll find that for you. And it showed a map from 1946 on. The U.S. has captained 147 regime changes across the globe. And as you know, in one of my papers on Substack, I advocate that we need a law. We need to outlaw color revolutions with a presidential decision directive, just like 12333, which is an anti-assassination. No government employee is allowed to assassinate a foreign individual leader unless it's approved by the president or a special congressional committee behind closed doors. And it's got to be for color revolutions too, because it's a good time always to remind people, we started, the US and the EU started the Ukraine war in 2014. And that's what the war is about. We overthrew the duly elected government of Ukraine and allowed in the power vacuum, the neo-Nazis to start the war that caused Crimea, Donetsk, and Luhansk to initially secede, to vote for autonomy first, then independence.
There was 10,000 people. 10,000 people were killed before 2022. So that war had been going on for 8 years.
And horrifically too. Most of those were civilians, randomly bombed. We were just lobbing artillery. That's what most of those 7 years were. So, that's why, to me, I think the president, and again, he's surrounded by, he only knows what he's told because he's got the whole world as his decision-making playground. But we don't need to, walk, kind of nestle around the edges gingerly. We just need to come to grips with what happened and make it right. It wasn't the American people. It wasn't the United States. It was Biden administration administrators, non-appointed officials. Right. And they overthrew it. And we're seeing that today. We could end this by simply, going to the table and saying what you and I have been advocating for. We're pulling out to Zelensky. You either sign this now. And if you think about that, if you really care about Ukrainians, you do that, because he's going to lose the entire eastern half of the country. It's pretty obvious. They're very close to a collapse right now, and they have no hope. There's 50,000 Russian troops are right now poised to attack in the Sunni region, and
I saw that.
What Ukraine's been doing is, the whack-a-mole game, trying to move forces around, and they can't do it anymore. They can't do it logistically. They just don't have enough people to do it. And Russian intel and Russian recon, ISI, is too effective for them to do it. So they're going to find the soft spot, and there's going to be a breakthrough very quickly.
Well, you talk about the color revolutions. It's just winning the hearts and minds, man. That's what we're doing, right?
Well, yeah. Well, you're right, and so again, the talk about eating crow. All of these influencers who praise Zelensky and have continued to praise him, and a couple of the retired generals that we've quoted, brilliant, Churchillian, and. It's the exact opposite. History will show he's the joker. He's the real fool who's just put in front of the cameras. He hasn't just lost the hearts and minds of the Ukrainians. He never had them. And he's turned them against, the Ukrainians, like many countries, are very nationalistic. They love their country. physically love it, which you and I have both been there. It's easy to physically love Ukraine. It's a gorgeous country. From border to border, the people are fantastic people, and he has done nothing for them but forced them into this predicament. They have no economy now. They've lost 1 million men. So, you know, they're in a real dilemma, and that's what I mean. If the U.S. really cares about them, they should be having a face-to-face discussion with him and saying, hey, this looks like your last chance to have any terrain east of the river. And if you don't act now, you're going to lose the whole thing. You're for sure going to be overthrown because he's poked the bear enough. They are not going to allow him in power, but at least he could fly off to one of his properties.
I was going to say that. I mean, one of the most evil things he's done is, he started this war. He enabled what is going on, but he also removed any. If you think about it, he removed the Christian faith from the Ukrainian people, or at least he tried to. So in the middle of a conflict, when they would need it the most, where 90-something% of the people are members of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, he removed that from them and destroyed or tried to destroy the church. So even if he goes to, Palm Beach or wherever his houses are, Monaco, I think after this nuclear attack, Putin, the long arm of Russia, will find him eventually. I mean, that's just, Putin has a way of doing that, blowing planes out of the sky or radioactive tea or something,
Well, we love to say that about Putin, but he's at best he's number 2 in the world at it, because we've been, as we just said, we've been doing stuff, but it's not 146 peaceful changes of power. It's 146 just sheer diabolical, anything goes to overthrow people that we didn't like. And again, to our viewers, you and I we're the last guys to claim we're like peaceniks or, there's never a reason for something. But the dilemma, the problem is all 146 are run by, and the decisions made about how to run them are done by these government administrators, these ambassadors, these chiefs of station, these military mill group commanders, these individuals that they're not representing the American people. They're representing a thought process that someone put in their head, and then they just flail until they overturn it. In most cases, there's no real plan for what to do afterwards. That was one of the many problems with what they did in Ukraine. There was no plan for what they do when they overthrew Yanukovych. And that's why the neo-Nazis filled the power vacuum, and it was uncontrollable for at least the first 120 days. And that cemented the foundation of how they were going to act after that. By the end of 120 days, when they actually installed a government, it was too late. The neo-Nazis and ultranationalists controlled everything. And the rest is the history that has taken us to where we're at today.
Wow. Great information, Pete. I really appreciate you taking the time, man. As I said, I know you're in high demand, so thank you for coming on today. And anything else you want to get out?
No, that was great. And we'll keep watching it, and I'll take a look at Azerbaijan and Armenia for our next show.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go there actually, personally, and get eyeballs on what's happening over, because there's so much happening there with the persecution of the Christians, which is becoming a big focus of our show in general. But Pete, thank you very much, man. We'll see you next week if possible.
Thank you, Todd. Take care.
All right, guys, that's the show. I hope you enjoyed it. A lot to go through. We'll be back tomorrow. We've got let me just look and see who we have tomorrow. We have Dr. Tapper. We have a pastor talking about Christian persecution in the Northeast. And we have Christian persecution in Nigeria. So it's going to be a full show tomorrow. Really going to focus on this topic, and nobody else is doing it, so we're going to do it. Anyway, we really appreciate you coming on. We will be back Tomorrow, 10 to noon Eastern, Monday through Friday on the SCIF. And next week, Wednesday night, we'll have the Georgia show again at 7 p.m. But the Georgia show will be on Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern. And today at actually in 2 hours, you're going to have the Colorado show. So if you want some entertainment this afternoon, check out the Colorado show in its new slot, 2 p.m. Eastern, 12 o'clock Mountain. Until then, we will see you tomorrow. Thank you for joining us.